Welcome to Messy Conversations. Today is going to be a very different, yet inspiring and riveting edition of Messy Conversations as we come to the end of our Black History Month presentations. Of course, Black history is American history. And even though our federal government is not celebrating messy conversations, we are at Antioch. So we welcome you today to our celebration. We ask that you stay muted until time to speak, and we hope you will raise your voices with great questions as you're told to do so. We also would welcome, if you're in Messy Conversations for the first time, we invite you to put your phone number, no, I'm sorry, not your phone number, don't want your phone number, sorry, your email addresses into the chat for us so that we can be back in touch with you and share future Messy Conversations with you. We would also like for you to stay muted until time for, discussion. So today, I'm happy to say, is an extremely interesting and powerful subject. And it came about a few months ago. We had a wonderful conversation on the Divine Nine. And at that time, our co conversationist, Toni Odom, who is a powerful Black woman's advocate, came on and said, why don't you do one on Afrowomanism versus Black feminism? And I said, oh, what a good subject. So we twisted her arm, both her legs, and she's back with us today, joining our professor, who I call our ambassador to Black girl joy, Professor LaCoya Gessesse. I always pronounce her name wrong, so forgive me. She'll correct me momentarily. But anyway, to complement our subject today, we are really pleased and honored to have Lorey Hayes, who is a Broadway performer. She is a film writer and a writer, all around writer, really. She's going to share with us a spoken word piece to highlight and to punctuate our subject today. So, because I'm not an Afro woman and I'm not a feminist in the Black woman sense, I'm going to get out of the way and let Lettucey and Lorey Hayes and these incredible women do their thing. So hit it, Asa.
Black hue, born from a golden hour, black love, the tide that grew the flower, mood changes the world, shapes the child that grew into a woman. Sunlight strong, sacrifices she made. Moving in silence, barely a thank you for all she gave. She smiles, powering through her pain. dark blended, every kind of hue. Soft, strong, a fragile life that keeps the world from ending. Yeah. Your complexity, still a mystery. I am curious instantly, a wildflower, born a queen. Yeah. God gave you a spiritual power, often misunderstood. Hey, you are me, black woman. You did good. Hey, black woman, I love you. Yes, I love you. Estimated, always the greatest. Black one.
Black women are spirit warriors, sent here to give you life. We, the great sisters, the great mothers of the universe, are not just flesh and blood. We are the jelly of life. Our backs, the bones, the sweet clay that made you up. Step on the soil and you walk on us. Plant your seed inside us and become us. We are your source. We are your women, Black women. Spirit warriors are not just flesh and blood. We are the jelly of life, our backs, the bones, the sweet clay that made you up. Step on the soil and you walk on us. Plant your seed inside us and become us. We are your spirit soaring, dancing on fire this time. Spirit that cannot be harnessed, spirit that cannot be tamed, spirit that cannot be destroyed. Watch us as we rise high, high above expectations. Slave ships could not contain us. Thrown overboard, we used our tears to swim with sharks and rescue our babies drowning in barrels of despair. We could not be stopped as we used our sweat to wash backs bent from the weight of slavery. We could not be stopped as we pulled our families up mountains of courage with sheer guts, will, and determination to fight on the battlefield for honor, justice, and salvation. We could not be stopped. We claim our reign in this den of iniquity, birthing our offsprings in every corner of the universe, rising high, high to touch the hand of God, breeding embryos of power, to seed a race, a nation that will once again rise up and take their rightful place. Brave, bold, daring fighters, impervious to fear, inspired by the armor they wear in their hearts, polished with the blood, polished with the blood, polished with the blood of we, Black women, spirit warriors.
Oh my God.
Thank you, Lorey, so much for sharing your gift with us and for grounding us in this conversation about Black women at this very specific time in history. I appreciate that deeply. Thank you, Messy Conversations team, for having Toni and I at such a time as this. You know, when Clarence first started talking about trying to do this, you don't always realize how timely these conversations are going to be. But of course, with the election and the fall, there have been some intense conversations, I think, about movements around women again, and whose work is whose to do and what groups are inclusive. And it's been such a joy to be in conversation with Toni around these things. We have a lot of similarities and then some differences that made us giggle, and I appreciated it. To ground our conversation, or maybe not just to kick us off, I just want to talk a little bit about feminism and some of the movements that I think out of which Black feminism and Afrowomanism are born. And so if you think about feminism just being defined as belief in and advocacy of the political, economic, and social equality of the sexes expressed especially through organized activity on behalf of women's rights and interests. That's just a dictionary definition of feminism. Mostly, a lot of times when we talk about the waves of feminism, we usually talk about the first wave, right? So that is the suffrage movement. And I'm talking here in American Western society, we talk about the suffrage movement. We're talking about Susan B. Anthony, and we're talking about the fight to, or the focus on gaining the right to vote. And then you've got Seneca Falls there in 1848. Eventually, that movement expands to include some other things as industrialization is coming, but primarily it was about the right to vote. And yet we see in that movement, well, Black women weren't even considered human at that particular point, but you start to see some fissures in this messaging around women gaining the right to vote. And you have Susan B. Anthony saying she would cut off her right arm before I ever work or demand the ballot for the Negro and not the woman. And then you have Sojourner Truth proclaiming, "Ain't I a woman?" as well, saying that Black women should be considered in this fight. You also have the work of Ida B. Wells and Mary Church Terrell and some others around the National Association of Colored Women at that point. So you already see these fissures in this movement for women. And then this sort of this group of Black women breaking off, saying this movement is not addressing our needs. And so with the National Association of Colored Women, we get the motto of lifting as we climb, and none of those women would live to see Black women get the vote, right? Then you have this sort of second wave feminism that comes like in the 1960s. And we've got some names that we hear often: Gloria Steinem, Dorothy Pittman Hughes. And this wave of feminism focused it focused primarily on sort of like gender roles and reproductive rights and equality in the workplace. And there were protests around centering the male gaze and the male perception of women. But you also have Black women then ultimately coming out saying that while that movement was sort of energized by the civil rights movement, in some historical record, they say that there were accusations of mistreatment, ignorance, and neglect, and encounters with white women unable to see beyond their own experiences, idealism, and women who were flat out behaving in racist ways. And so this is another moment where I think we start to see Black women say that movement, the larger white feminist movement, does not speak to us. And it's important, I think, to understand in this day and age, as we talk more about intersectionality, how people are looking at white feminism now and why it is so criticized. And ultimately, I'm taking this quote from White Feminism, from the Suffragettes to Influencers and Who They Left Behind. This is by Koa Beck. It was published in 21, I believe. And she's really looking at white feminism and how it works in business, how it works in advocacy. And she ultimately says that it's an ideology and a very specific approach and strategy toward achieving gender equality that focuses more on individual accumulation, capital, and individuality. That it's about accruing power without any redistribution or reconsideration of it. And that's why white feminism, quite frankly, overlaps with white supremacy, classism, transphobia, etc., because there is no analysis of that power and it's very singular in its execution and its goals. And I think this is why we then start to see Alice Walker in the early 80s talk about womanism. And then on that, Clenora Hudson Weems then talk about Afrowomanism. So it's interesting. So you've got Black feminism that's sort of mirroring, right, white feminism in a way, but it is also at that particular point including intersections of race. And then by the time we get to Black womanism and Black Afrowomanism, I think we've expanded that even further. Is that a good setup for you, Toni?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. That is exactly where we are when we look at, like you said, the different waves of feminism in general. But for Black women, we've always stood up for our people and recognized race and gender. But what I wanted to say in terms of uh, the womanist, just the definition of that really was kind of inclusive, like you said, of the whole feminist movement, what was going on, women loving women, women being together, working in their communities, etc. But for Afro-womanism, Africana-womanism took it even a step further. It's more about Black women as a whole recognizing the importance of our race and gender, because that's really when we come into the room, you Black first. That's what they're going to see first, okay? And then you become a woman, you're seen as a woman. And unfortunately, the intersections, as you stated, in the feminist movement, it centers more on an individualistic point of view or about just women and their gender. Whereas Black women, we're more inclusive of what is our role in the family and bringing our community together, our connection with our men, all of that. That's what womanism is more about. It's not about just gender in the sense of looking at reproductive rights or your voting or whatever, because most people don't know. In the suffragist movement, I'll just start there, a lot of the women there, say the Grimke sisters and like you said, Susan B. Anthony, all of them, their main point to white men a lot of times was, you mean you would rather this Black man be able to vote before me?
Right.
Are you serious? That's a lot of how they got their rights to vote. But were they thinking about Black women? No.
No. And ultimately, what they did was sort of start to build coalitions with white men and with white racist Southerners. And instead of focusing on white women and their right to vote, they start to say, if we all band together, right, we will have this majority or we will maintain power. So that's another critique of sort of white feminism, that it's about elevating white women to be in a place to receive the same status, the same economics, the same power as sort of like white men.
Correct.
And it didn't bring anybody else along. And in fact, continues to then subjugate and put Black women in certain places, right, in order to help elevate them to get them to that spot.
Exactly. During the suffragist movement, Black women had to go to the back.
Right.
The back of the line. And I mean, when you look at that, historically, we were no longer in your houses, cleaning your house, raising your kids, that was over with after our enslaved ancestors were so-called freed. But that's where a lot of that stuff, and like you're saying, that just means they want the power to put their foot on your neck, just like the white man can. So that's, like you said, about
Right.
power and
Right.
about position. That has nothing to do with what we're saying is Black female womanists, is that we have to take into account everything. Our men, what happens to our men, the racism, police brutality, et cetera, et cetera. That's a part of the womanist movement. What
Mhm.
is happening to our children, their education, all that. We don't separate it all into pieces, and call it ourselves feminists. A lot of women, like, feminism isn't a monolith. Let's go on and admit that there are women all the way across the board, but a lot of Black women where we may separate from Black feminists is in the sense that many Black feminists were so a part of the white feminist movement. I think it was Bell Hooks that said something about, kind of like we're on the periphery of the white feminist movement, but we need to move to the center of it and get in the center of it. Well, Afro or Africana womanism is like, why do I have to move anywhere? I don't need that movement when I can have my own that recognizes all the things that I need. So there's really no need to be a part of something that we have to work to be a part of. Why? When you have your own needs and issues. So that's another difference. That's why the womanism is that Alice Walker talked about was a little more general and more closer to what white feminism is, whereas Black feminism, I'll put it that way, it was doing the same thing, whereas
Right.
Africana womanism, we can
Well,
do
I
our
saw
own thing.
Well,
Go
I
ahead.
saw Hudson Weems say that womanism. So if you look at it, as this continuum of feminism, that womanism didn't push it far enough, even though womanism says, okay, we're breaking from white feminism. We're going to also introduce race into this conversation and kind of center the Black woman. Hudson Weems then says that it wasn't enough to even be grounded in those ideals. It's
Right.
still built on those pillars, and
Right.
that we needed something completely different to address the specific needs of our community. So even
Exactly.
in Africana womanism, we're not, the woman, gender is not even centered. It's
No.
like it's the unit of the family that is centered, and then all aspects of the woman in that family.
Exactly. Exactly. It's not about a gender war. We're not at war with our men because they are under the same racism that we're under. So the whole battle with power for the man is not a part of Africana womanism. Okay, we don't have that battle with our men. The same thing with the individual versus the community. That's the other part. We're about community, not my individual. Am I going to break the glass ceiling? It's not about that. I mean, we want that to happen, but that's not the core of what we're talking about as an individual. That's another thing that kind of separates Black feminism from womanism. It would be that, because when you look at the African practice of Ubuntu means I am because we are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so once again, it shows where we're about community way more than just gender or our relationships with our men. Or I'm trying to look at what another one is. Just being aware of that intersectionality that a lot of the feminist movement did not do.
Right.
Okay, so that's another example.
Right.
When
Well,
I think, go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, I also was going to say, when you look at some of the racism in feminism or whatever, I think about the Me Too movement. Now, we
Mm-hmm.
all got, learned about that, but a Black woman started the Me Too
Tarana Burke.
movement and was
Right.
more about, the things that we experienced on jobs or whatever. But then think about it. Then many white feminists took that movement and switched it around, and then it became all about, you know, celebrity women that had experienced, you know, sexual harassment or whatever, you know, the whole thing that Black women started and what was forgotten. It got blown up into, you know, the what's his name? I can't even think his name that went to
Weinstein,
jail.
Harvey.
Weinstein,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. And about the actresses and the da da da. Well, see, once again, our movement was taken over and turned around, and it didn't include us anymore.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk about this issue of movements. And I apologize, I cannot follow the chat. So I see it popping up, but I can't do it. We're gonna get to that later, right, Sarah Beth?
I got you.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Let's talk about movements in this current day and age, Toni. So
Okay.
one of the things that we giggled about was, you know, this 92% and Black women currently being encouraged to rest and do nothing as democracy falls, I guess, and instead allow other groups to step up and do this work. And I'm just curious how you would frame Africana womanism. I don't know. What is my question? How you would juxtapose Africana womanism to that message?
Right.
Or just your thoughts about how Africana, the tenets of Africana womanism sort of could breathe in this space and time? Because even though you said you disagree with that when we chatted, you disagree with that message, I do think that Africana womanism, because it's decentering whiteness, right? And putting us as the focus of our own movements, I kind of think that they're aligned. I kind of think those messages are akin, that this idea of taking care of home first,
right,
and letting other groups do this work.
What they do. Great. I agree. However, where we may have disagreed a little bit is the fact that, yes, that truly is what womanism is. I don't think the conditions of our community or Black women changed on November 6th or was different on November 4th. The election itself, yes, a lot of people were disappointed and whatever, but my thing was, well, if you're a womanist and you've been working in your community, it really, the whole political thing didn't change anything.
Okay.
And the fact of the matter is that women, I think more women are becoming more aware, because 54% of white women voted for Trump the last time and 54% voted for him this time. So to me, I'm looking at it like, well, nothing new here. I mean, all of the work we should have been doing. And when you look at her campaign, trying to bring women together on, say, reproductive rights or whatever, those are not key issues for Black women. Now, like I said, feminism isn't a monolith, but for many Black women, reproductive rights are not a number one issue. It's pushed down a little further down. And so, like you're saying, it's true. A lot of Black women are saying, hey, we've tried to get allies, we've tried to work, we've done this, da, 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 da. And even though we voted at 92%, it still wasn't enough. Yeah, in that sense, yes, it is womanism, you know, because you're recognizing your power and what things in your community you should be working on.
I hear you on the reproductive rights. I think it was still an important issue, but I think at times it felt like it was the only issue that was constantly being discussed. And they needed some diversification in their messaging a little bit.
Correct.
You know, but I have seen sentiments exactly like what you expressed, that the election day, whatever day it was, November 4th, it didn't change anything. You know what I mean? Like we were still in the same circumstances beforehand and as we are now, and we should have known better than to sort of like hope that it would be different, you know.
Correct.
Because I was telling, you know, members in my community, like, don't talk to me, like, talk to your other communities, like, I'm not the one, go spread that message elsewhere. But talk to me then about how you think. So do you think that in our attention to our communities at this point, however we got there, right? Do you think that womanism is something, Africana womanism is something that we should be promoting a little bit more at this time? Because it is sort of like scholarly material. It's not, you know what I mean, pop culture. Yeah, like, how do we get it out there more to promote it?
Well, I think because a lot of women have taken the position that they have after the election, if they start doing more study and research, then they will see. And I think the light bulb pops on, and then you understand, because that's the thing with a lot of our people. There's plenty of scholarship and work that people have done, our ancestors have done, our scholars have done, to put things in perspective so you totally understand where we're coming from and what our needs are. And I think more and more people are waking up to the fact that we have to work in our own best interest in anything. All things. And I really do think it will probably take hold more now, because people are waking up saying, wait a minute, how
I've
long
done
have
all
I
this
been
work.
voting?
Right.
How much canvassing and door knocking and all this stuff have I done for this party, and what? So that is exactly what I think is going to happen. And we always have women that step up to the plate, that do what they need to do and can understand intersectionality, because some Black womanists or whatever are not in tune with white feminism because of the LGBTQIA positions. Okay, so like I said, there are different ways. It's kind of like a spectrum, and people, you can jump on any area, but the main thing is to understand how important the family is, and how important protecting and growing our community is, and that's the main thing.
Are you saying that members of that community can't adhere to it, or they don't understand it because they think it's excluding them?
No, I was just saying a lot of, okay, let's say more religious type people, or people that are very conservative, or people that's what they even had a problem with Black feminism, because so many of the leaders in Black feminism were lesbian, right? So then therefore, like I said, there's a spectrum. So you have people that are going to be involved and do what they're supposed to do in general for the community, because the community includes everybody, right? But then you will have those that feel differently. So like I said, it's not a monolith. There are going to be different views about that, but it's okay, because like I said, it's the community as a whole that's the most important thing. So I wouldn't say womanism is anti anything. Go ahead.
Okay, I was about to say, in your research, does she address it? Does Hudson Weems address it at all at that point?
You know what? I have not seen that. And thank you. Okay. That's something I need to look up more about. But by what I do know, she is more about community, period.
Okay.
And that's the most important thing. Everybody is a part of the community.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting topic. That's an interesting thought, just sort of then in this day and age, how do you expand it, or how do you continue to redefine it? Because, I talked about first and second wave, but I was in some of my research, they're saying we're up to possibly like the fifth wave of feminism at this particular point. And so I wonder if there have been iterations or waves of Africana womanism, because she introduces this concept in the early 80s.
Right.
So I'm curious, has it evolved? Has it expanded since then?
Oops. I am so sorry.
That's okay.
I think it has expanded. I mean, but like I said, when you get to the core structure and theory of the womanism, it stayed the same. I don't think you have to really keep growing it or changing it or whatever, because the bottom line, like I said, is Ubuntu. I am because we are. That doesn't
Okay.
change. That's going to
Okay.
always be there. Yeah. So I just brought that up to say why there was a split a lot of times among women in general,
Okay.
from black feminism, because of the relationship with men, because of sexuality issues, because of things like that. That's why a lot of women pulled away from the black feminist movement.
Got it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if we had to list like 5 major tenets of Africana womanism, what do you think they would be? So we got one thing. So it decenters gender. Issues of gender are not the priority.
No.
So it decenters that and emphasizes family and community.
Correct.
Go ahead.
Because of that, like I said, dealing with a lot of other issues that don't deal with that, like in terms of economics, or how you want to look. Like I said before, a lot of times with the feminist movement, it was about breaking the glass ceiling, but we
Individual.
feel right, it's not individual, it's collective. So even individually, we support you, and of course break every ceiling you can. However, that's not the focus. It's the focus is, if I can help you to understand yourself as a woman and what the true power of a woman is, then everything else falls into place, right? You're gonna break ceilings, you're gonna create new things, you're gonna push the envelope. And that's what I love about it so much, that you can be yourself, and like I said, be on that spectrum and pick up wherever you feel you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
If it's more of a corporate thing, I don't have any children. Some women don't have children, but that does not mean that I'm not a nurturer and a woman that's here to build my community. For some women, it could be getting married. For some women, it could be having children. For some women, it could be their career, whatever. But if you're all focused on, like I said, that the importance of gender, family, race, and I would say race more than anything. That's the main thing. Get into your Africanness, understanding who you are as a Black woman is another point that's really differentiates it. Knowing your culture, understanding about race and racism.
Well, to that point, in some of my reading, I know she was talking about a major focus being that that it focused on Blackness and Africanness being equal to all other, all other groups, and never something that is subordinate. And so that the fight in womanism, the fight of the community, is that the community is respected, viewed, seen, dealt with on equal terms as all other groups in humanity. And so that, and it draws then on some of the connection to African community and African spirituality, that this is no less, right, than the paradigms that have been presented to us. This is no less than the white gods that have been presented to us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is the main thing. It is that respect, like I said, of our culture and what it means. In African culture, women are held up. Original African culture promoted that women were closer to God because we could give birth. The men were like, I can't do that. This woman is matriarchal. Much of African culture, the men may have went and got hunting or whatever, but it was the women in the village making the baskets, doing the commerce, running the village. The matriarch mother figure was the elder that you went to, along with the male elders, but that's just it, together. There was no hierarchy like that. So that's what she's talking about when we really delve back into our own culture, the way it's set up.
Do you know if they're still studying Hudson Weems right now for the time that we're allowed to study it?
If they're studying what now?
Are they still studying Africana womanism like present?
Oh, yeah. Yes, you can actually, I think it's Clark Atlanta offers a PhD in it. Dr.
And
Weems
that's where
now,
she was affiliated with, right?
right, but now she teaches, I believe, at the University of Missouri, Columbia. So
Okay.
that's where I believe she is teaching right now. So yes, and I'm sure there are other young ladies that have picked that up, and will keep the research going and keep it going. I need to look more into it. I was thinking of myself even, just learning more and applying it so we can apply it to what's going on right now. Like you're saying, bringing that up, that's the brilliant thing about it. You can see that there are so many things that we can apply this I don't want to say theology, but this theory too,
Yeah. Yeah.
to keep relevant in terms of what's going on in the world now. Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing some questions that are piquing my interest, just like quickly, Sarah Beth. So I don't know. Maybe we should look at some of those.
If you haven't been able
Sure.
to turn your eyes away from the conversation, I understand. Asa is putting some great stuff in the chat for us, resources that are being discussed. And the first person to start us off was Mama Ra, who lost her voice. I'm sorry to hear that and hope that you get better soon. But here's her question. How has white feminist privilege confused Black women and why?
Ooh, that's a good one. You want me to answer that, or who is it?
I
Either,
can try.
either.
I can. Oh, go ahead, Tony. I can try.
Okay.
Do you want to
Okay.
take it?
Go ahead, and then I'll add to it. I don't want
I
to.
mean, I think some of that is rooted in our exposure and the pounding of dominant culture into, where did Tony go on my screen? There you go. Into the way that we live, right? And
Right.
so then if the ideals of capitalism are, marriage, house, picket fence, corporate job, like whatever, you know what I mean? Like I don't feel like members of marginalized groups are, we don't get blessed with special abilities to be able to avoid mainstream and dominant culture and the influence of that on our lives, right? And so if that is the main ideal, right, then we have to do something within ourselves to choose something different. So to me, it seems like, and then I think also some of these additional waves of feminism have attempted some inclusion in some different ways. Maybe even, we kind of were touching on that, like where is womanism expanding? But I wonder if some of the messaging from these additional waves from the younger generations, like if some of that has also been attractive. And I'm talking about the explicitly welcoming members of different groups from the LGBTQIA community and stuff like that.
Right. Well, I think mainly with that question is, first of all, we know white women don't have to worry about their husbands being unalived by the police.
Okay.
White women don't have to have that talk with their kids. Okay. Those are the things that still is a part of their white privilege, right? And then unfortunately, and I know Mama Ra, she's a elder that has taught me a lot about intergenerational trauma. Many of us take on the same attitudes to be a part. It's almost like Stockholm syndrome, where we adopt some of the same attitudes and stuff toward our own community that white women do. So that, I think, is the main issue. Though Africana womanism, that's not going to fly at all, but
I mean,
females don't have the same issues. Like I said, they have the privilege to not have to deal with those things.
Well, we're still just like tempted to assimilate and to, you know what I mean? Like, so it makes sense to me that it would be like a dangling carrot to get you to elevate your status in society, right?
Right. Of course. I mean, we had to relax our hair so white people could relax. Okay. So, it's a whole lot of stuff that we have to deal with. And you have the decision to go with the program, go with the flow, or
Rail
adopt
against it,
and
right?
stay true to self. So yeah, that's the $1 million question we all have to deal with.
Right. And we see waves of that too, right? Where we're subjected to it and we may give in, and then there's a movement to pull us back out. You know
Right.
what I mean? Or yeah.
Correct. That's going on.
Confused. I like that word and that question though, because I do think it is sort of just like, until you can see other models for yourself, or unless you're exposed to other models, then
Absolutely.
it dominates. Yeah.
And you deal with your own personal intergenerational trauma, because
Yes.
all Black people have it and have to face it.
Yes.
Our next question came from Javon. Javon, would you like to ask your question?
Yes. Hello. So hello, as a Black man wanting to help support Black women and you guys, how I know, like in the past, with like in recent past with the Women's March going, well, I didn't attend, but I remember having a conversation with one of my coworkers who's white, and she was like asking me, why wouldn't you come and support? And I was like, I told her, well, as a Black man standing next to Black women, why would I go and support the march when you guys don't want to align with Black women or want to help, by always wanting to other and put them in a box? Why would I want to go and support that when, if it's a woman's march, it's supposed to be for all women, not telling someone, oh, it's just for, it's just for you. So she like had like this, gave a side eye back, but I was like, we can't, if we can't support everyone, then why attend? So how can Black men better support you guys by wanting to help with the feminist movement, Black feminist movement?
Well, I would say, brother, just being yourself and being a Black man and being supportive of the women in your life, being supportive of the things that we face together. And that's what it is. Because like I said, our movement has never been a problem with Black men. It's not. That's just not our issue. And so unfortunately, a lot of feminists don't feel the same way. And if they have an issue with their gender, their men, that's them. That's not our fight. That's not we have a totally different relationship with our men than they do. Right? So, and I applaud you for saying that, what you said, because it's very true. You want to support your women and the issues that we find important. And if that's not included in those moves, then you're absolutely right. What would be the point?
I do think that some of the tenets of it, that men are already included, right? Because of the focus on community. So it's not a how do I get in? You're already there.
Right.
And I do think maybe, and Toni can get me about this later, maybe there are some generational divides where Black brothers and sisters do need to be having some new and energizing conversations with each other, because I do feel like that there is some discord in some spaces as of late about how brothers are showing up and or not, right? And I'm talking pop cult, you know what I mean? Like that conversation. But I think in on the basis of it, Black men are already included in it.
All right. And we got to look at propaganda. A lot of propaganda say, oh, Black men are deadbeat dads, or they're this and they're that. But then they don't talk about the statistics that show that Black men are more involved in their children's lives on a day-to-day basis, taking them to baseball, doing whatever, than white men. But you'll never hear that statistic. What I mean?
They also don't include incarceration rates in there and what has happened with the education gap.
Right.
That Black women are the most educated group in the country in terms of letters behind their name at this particular point. And Black men remain the most incarcerated group in the, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so what are you supposed to do with that? And I do think that there are some real hard conversations happening about what that has done to the Black family and what that has done to relationships between Black women and Black men, for sure.
Africana-womanism.
Thank you. Dr. Odom, thank you
Thank
for
you.
saying that, because Sarah Beth was my advisor when I was in the bachelor's program, and that's what I did my capstone project on, was Black fathers and the relationship between Black sons. And I I had those numbers, the statistics, rates of all that, and everyone in the room was like, oh. So
Yeah.
yeah, and
Right.
I mean, I
See?
grew up with my father. My parents were together until my father passed. So like I grew up in that, with having
Right.
both parents in the household, which,
Right.
Absolutely.
yeah. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Javon, for asking your question. The next question comes from Zoe. I want to get it right. Would you like to ask your question?
Sure. I'm wondering about the possibilities or opportunities for solidarity between the Africana womanism movement and other movements led by women of color.
Movements like what?
Say like indigenous women leaders around the world. I mean, I think there probably are a lot of similar goals, maybe. So I'm just wondering if there's been any reaching out or connections going on.
I'm sure there are some different individuals that have worked. As far as a whole organization dedicated to that, I can't speak on that. But the fact of the matter is, if we each have different issues within our communities, and I think when you look at it, the source basically is racism, or that's the issue. So we both have a common issue or person we should work against, then that's where the solidarity is. It's kind of like collaboration. It's not so much where that's why I talk a lot about, Black, brown stuff or BIPOC stuff or whatever. I feel that each individual organization or group of people, they know what their issues are. They work together. Then we collaborate and work toward ending the racism that has caused it in the first place. That's where you go, because really mixing and whatever, that isn't really the case, because like I said, that's what went wrong with white feminism, because they don't have an understanding of all the issues that we have, and so they were ignored, so the intersectionality didn't happen. So it's okay, everybody, it's kind of everybody do your thing, and we'll come together because we have the same common issue: racism. That's it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Stephanie. Stephanie, would you like to ask it?
Sure. Thank you. I wrote, in what ways is Africana womanism attractive to younger Black women who are very much ingrained to act in an individualized manner, kind of that boss behavior, boss mentality, which tends to be less communal? So how might it be attractive to them when that is the vein that they understandably may have been pushed toward, but have pretty much owned it as their identity?
Mm.
Well, I don't want to keep hogging the questions. You want to answer?
I'm trying. I'm
thinking.
I'm in a very specific place in life where I'm very focused on family at this particular point. And so my community is focused on family. And I'm seeing in that community an increasing celebration and desire to work on behalf of the Black family. So there are a lot of movements that are talking about that, in a lot of ways that people are trying to just build. Right. But I don't know the answer to that for some of the young sisters who are not there yet.
Well, I mean, when you look at it, Lord, I was young once upon a time. A million years ago. But like you said, being a boss, I get it, because I always thought I was a boss myself. It's a matter of our culture passing on the lessons that we have, because still, boss or not, you still gonna hit the same wall and the same ceiling that I did. Okay. And so I think the boss chick thing it can be put in perspective. We're not asking you to squash any of your abilities and thoughts and actions. However, in Black culture, recognizing, you know, your elders, and then recognizing that we pass the baton, and then you take the baton and then you go forward and do what is good for you. Young women today is a whole set of things, new issues they may have, but then a lot of them are still based on the same thing that happened to me. Okay. And then when I look at it, I'm in a sorority. Okay. When we look at our training, our teaching of leadership, all that still from old heads like me. And it's Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. Thank you. But that is not going to be a problem. See, that's what I mean. If we keep in with our culture and keep understanding who we are as Black women, then this new stuff, it can be, you know, it can put a little on it, touch it up a little bit, but it's still, if you're an African woman, if you're a Black woman, you understand what that means.
Well, I look at movements too, to that point, Toni, like Win with Black Women and Dakota Eddy. And she just gave that speech this past weekend talking about the importance of organizing. Right. And that is an entire nationwide group of Black women who were together before the election, right? And work on different initiatives around the country. And I do think young women are involved in that heavily. So I think some messaging around the 92% might be making that easily that clickbait, you know what I mean, around focusing on ourselves a little more accessible.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Sian asked me to ask the next question. How does Africano womanism respond to the family system at times, rejecting the Black trans woman and centering family? What happens when family itself needs to be reimagined in order to center the voices of Black trans women and the unique oppression experienced by them?
I do not have the answer to that one.
Okay, go ahead.
I said I do not.
Oh, okay. Let me think about this for a minute. Like I said, community is community. Okay, in terms of Black people and what's accepted, what's not accepted, etc. But Black, I'm assuming you're thinking Black trans women or trans women. What is that? What you're asking?
Yes, it was about Black trans women.
Okay. I think first of all, there has to come a point where there are different issues within the trans community that they have to deal with that is their issue. And I'm not saying that we would, what African womanism would reject a trans woman or whatever in that sense, but her issues are a bit different than what the issues are for women that are childbearing and that are a part of families. It's not to, it's like looking at it from a new point of view in terms of what their issues are, but their issues are not our issues in the same sense, if you see what I mean. Of course, we want to protect anybody. Nobody has the right to be discriminated against or unalived or whatever. Granted, that's something we would always fight for and be about, you know, and I can't speak for anybody but myself. What I would say with that is we are not going to get off of the general precepts of what we're talking about as women. You know, that's a trans woman is a woman in some people's eyes, but some people would beg to differ. And that's why I was saying we're not a monolith. You know, those are some things probably we are going to have to sit down and talk about, because the trans community, being a part of the Black community, is something that we do have to decide as a people on how it's going to be handled. But that community is not going to, be able to dictate the direction that we're going in. I guess that's what I want to say, because their issues really boil down to racism as well. Black trans women are uh, unalived and dealt with more harshly than anybody else.
Absolutely.
So what does that do? It goes back to racism once
Right.
again. So that's where I would be with that.
And
Go
I
ahead.
wonder too, just from a place of curiosity, since Afrowomanism doesn't like center Christianity, right?
No.
Like if there's more space, right, for the inclusion of all these other groups, because that's sort of like right, wrong, is not a part of African spirituality.
Right. And I don't know what to say in terms of it isn't based on in any religion. Like I said, it's not a monolith. You have people that are going to be Christian women that will not agree, and those that do. So, and like you said, those of us that are more spiritual and go back to our African spirituality. So I just want to say we are, I think, more inclusive and open, but that it's not going to negate the principles of family that we do believe in and work for. In the story. And it's not to be negative, but that's another issue that has to be dealt with. But it can't take away from the family. It's just not going to.
Okay, I see that we just passed the 5 o'clock mark, and some folks have to leave at this time. We dare you to stay and get messier with us as we have a conversation for a little bit longer here, if you can hang out. Our next question comes from David. Would you like to ask it?
Yeah, sure. First, thanks so much to Toni and LaCoya for a really good conversation on a really important topic, and making helpful differentiations between feminism broadly and the womanist movement. My question was on how historically womanism has been critiqued as kind of heterosexist, with its focus on the heterosexual family. And what are the possibilities? So it's sort of in the line of Cien's that hers posted, or theirs posted before mine did. But what are the possibilities of queering womanism? And what might that look like? And what one way to think about this is to go back to Cian's question on the possibilities of re-understanding what family is. So rather than say, well, we're going to hold on to family, even if that doesn't work for you as a queer person or an LGBT person, what are the possibilities of a conversation in models of family are reimagined? So thank you for entertaining the question.
Okay, I would say, one of my best friends in life, her mom was queer and raised her well. And that's always been a part of the Black experience. I dare you to go to a Black church that doesn't have a gay choir director. Okay. and I'm just trying to say we have embraced that more in our culture, I think, than in a lot of other cultures. People talk about, when you look at the Harlem Renaissance, that was mainly homosexual people. And it's not ever been so taboo in our community. It's kind of like, okay, that's who you are. Okay, do you? But then we have our other stuff going on here. We're not gonna bother you. You're a part of everything. Look at the fact that I can't remember his name right now, that worked with Martin Luther King on the March on Washington. Everybody knows.
Rustin,
right. That's what I'm just saying. It's never been so negative. There have been families like that where it may not be man, woman, and child. It could have been man, child, man, and child. I mean, that has always been in our community. And I don't think we've ever made a big deal out of it. But it's almost like propaganda now says that, oh, the Black community and the Black church is so, homophobic. But no, my church in Chicago with Jeremiah Wright, where past President Obama attended, my denomination does not allow gay clergy. There was a part of our church. It was all it never was looked down upon and treated any differently. So I think some people maybe need to look more at, we've always adjusted our families to whatever was in a part of that person's life, and you were not looked down upon. That's what I say. Now, are you going to have some people that are against it? Of course. Like I said, nothing is a monolith, but there are too many instances where that was not true, and that we did embrace everyone. And it is a conversation we need to have in our community, but it's something that we've pretty much dealt with a lot. And it's not, the propaganda won't let you know that. They'll just keep trying to harp on negative things, and that's just not true. It's not true. And there's a conversation. And if family structures are family structures, and you're going to deal with whatever, however, still the man, woman, and child paradigm is the main thing that we will work toward fixing, because it's been under attack as well. The Black family has always been under attack. So I hope that answers your question. I don't know.
I was going to just add, like, I know that from a scholarly perspective, and you think about different movements too, there is now the Black queer feminism movement. And I'm just curious to investigate just like intersections there to see where those two ideologies are having some conversations. Yeah.
Yeah, if I could just follow up super quickly, Sarah Beth. So thank you, LaCoya, for raising the Black feminist concern and conversation around queer, which is we've seen more of for sure, and that's important. We know even in recent history, we just go back to the HIV and AIDS crisis and how that played out in around race and Blackness and in the Black church community. So these are real issues that remain, I think. And I think that there's extraordinary possibility for opening up conversations and redefining certain key ideas. So thank you for your responses.
Thank you, David. Mama Ra has another question that I'll ask. Has integration affected younger Black women and how they may only concern themselves with individualism?
Well, individualism is the language that they speak. Everything in their lives, social media and everything, you know what I mean, is all about reflecting back to them how wonderful they are. So I don't see how they couldn't be subjected to that influence and that power. It's what influence.
Right. Could you repeat the question again? I'm missing something.
Sarah Beth, we can't hear you.
Sorry, talking to myself. Has integration affected younger Black women and how they may only... Can you hear me?
Sorry.
Yeah, I can.
And how they may only concern themselves with individualism.
Well, that is something that we have to deal with today. When you look at over these decades and how people have adjusted to society, and like LaCoya is saying, when you look at it, social media, a lot of stuff that they're dealing with. However, integration did strip many of us of the Black identity that we were adhering to, say in the 60s or whatever. Now I'm a 60s baby, so I'm up there. But when I look at over all these decades, there's still things about Black culture that resonate with young people till today. And I think even more so lately it's going to come back around. So some of the people that did forget, say 70s, 80s, you know, now they're starting to see like, oh, wait a minute. Because if you look at history, even it's about every 30, about 40 years that we go through times when more Afrocentrism resonates with people. If you look at the Harlem Renaissance, then 40 years later, it was the you know, civil rights movement. Then after that, you have more of the movement with the young people now, even with some of the rap music or with whatever cultural stuff, you know, you see young people starting to lock their hair or wear big afros or the big hoop earrings. You know what I mean? Our culture kind of is cyclical like that. So I think young people are gonna they're already picking that up and kind of getting more into their culture more and understanding who they are as Black people.
Lord,
So,
40-year cycle. Oof.
yeah, think
That's
about it. Yep.
unfortunate. That's
Harlem
unfortunate.
Renaissance was what, in the 20s, 30s, and then you had the civil rights movement in the 60s, right? Then, you know, it's a little bit longer this time, but I think it's coming around. It's getting there. So
Well,
you
yeah, your
learn.
most recent example of that, if you're talking about, you know, if you having the what are young folks conversation doing, is Kendrick Lamar at the Super Bowl,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So
So many symbols were in that a lot of people
absolutely.
missed totally. But the young man, he's on top of it. And Kendrick Lamar has been around for a while. He won a Pulitzer Prize actually in I
Right.
think 2018, something like that. So he has 25, 20 or something Grammys.
Right.
So Kendrick has been around for a while. And you know, he's very conscious young man, and he's reaching out, and I think kids are really resonating with him. You're absolutely right, LaCoya. That's why a lot of people were so upset with the I'm sorry, y'all, my phone is dying, with the Super Bowl performance, because it's just a little bit too Black. If you see what Samuel L. Jackson representing, you know, Uncle Sam, that put it all out there, right there.
Right. A little too radical. Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
he's not
Right.
alone, you know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm. Oh no, a lot of kids. They're waking up. Like I said, we're passing the baton. You know, and that happens in every culture, pretty much in the sense that the young people are the ones that come up with the new movements and the new things they want to do and get done. And then the older generation passes the baton. Same thing now. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Jacqueline, do you want to talk about the link to the book that you shared and it's tied to Messy?
Oh no, I just wanted to put that out there
Oh.
for Zoe's question, because
Yeah.
it just is an overlap of what she was asking, and I'm sorry, my allergies are bad. It was just an overlap of what she was asking about the joint efforts that are out there for various cultural and ethnic backgrounds, working towards or working within this concept of
Framework.
womanism. And when I was back and I enjoyed this book. It was a really good book, and I knew back when I was on the East Coast that the Cherokee and the African American women were doing a lot of projects together in the area that I lived around DC, Maryland, Virginia, um, just trying to heal as
Mm-hmm.
the communities and each other as far as their history and their involvement, because everybody's got a marker. So, you know, it was just an interesting book to read, and it was an interesting organization to participate in gradually. And I also feel that, I know it's going to sound weird, but I also feel that with the young people, I think it's less cyclical as much as it is the elevation of the younger generation that's involved. I think the integration there's always going to be somebody there that's going to remind you that you cannot fully integrate, no matter what
Right.
you're doing. So I think that the younger generation is always involved. They just they always find a different way and and to respond to it. And it might take time to respond to it, but it always exists. And I feel like there's this one thing that we're always told by the women in our community, be careful what you say and who you say it to.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time that they are out there and they're promoting and they're stronger and they're not being as quiet as they have been before, it's because they've been careful. And it looks cyclical and it's not. I think it's an underlying aspect of uh, being in the community, being in the African American community, and being careful. So yeah, those are the two things I just noticed the discussion. And thank
Okay.
you. This is awesome.
Thank you.
Ladies, I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I
Mhm.
have like three comments. You mentioned, Toni, Kendrick Lamar in the Super Bowl. I have to recognize my sister Beyonce in her performance at a previous Super Bowl, how
Mhm.
she also used symbolism
Right.
to call out the importance and the life of Black women in America and the contributions
Mhm.
thereof.
She
So,
did.
she's been doing that as well with her
Mhm.
music. Lemonade,
Right.
LaCoya was a big example of that.
Mhm.
I would say, even though I'm not a connoisseur of, Beyonce, but I appreciate her artistry and I
Right.
hold her to high esteem
Mhm.
for sure. And speaking of artists, David put in the chat, and I wanted to make mention of it earlier, but I thought for the sake of time I would not. And that is that the iconic, legendary Roberta Flack passed away today. And
Oh.
so we lift her up as she becomes one of our ancestors.
Yes.
Wonderful woman. I got the chance to work with her a couple of times, and she became a long friend. And we wish her well as she journeys into the
Mhm.
next realm of her next experience. And also, LaCoya, you mentioned the organization when with Black women. I was on the call with them and 25,000 other people, men and women, last night to talk about the dismissal
Oh, that
of
was their
Joy,
call.
Joy Reid last night, of her dismissal from, MSNBC. So that was very powerful to see the women taking charge. And even though, previously they talked about resting as part of the 92%, they're very much, as you said earlier in your comments, they're very much on the move around
Mhm.
other issues at this point. And the erasure of a major, major journalistic voice, not even a Black woman, not even a Black person, but a major journalist like a Joy Ann Reid is a loss for all of us. Black, white, red, green. I mean, she had a way of breaking down the issues so that any viewer could really understand. And I follow her on Instagram, and I implore the rest of you to do the same if you can. She's not making a big issue right now on her own Instagram, but for sure, the announcement is being made as we speak, I guess, as to what her next moves are. But I didn't want to call too much attention for my selfish reasons for messy conversations. But we were all told to watch her at 7 p.m. Eastern time and 4 p.m. LA time. But that's when messy conversations happen. So I wasn't a
But
good
know,
promoter of that, but I will, not be watching MSNBC from here on, and I also will be supporting Joy Reid with whatever platform she pops up on.
I think what we need to really understand about that whole thing, the media, and I've worked in it too, Clarence. The fact of the matter is the rage bait, the this or that, whatever, how she presented things or whatever, but they'll use you like a tool and then throw you away. If she start talking too much truth, you already know what's gonna happen. You know what I mean? So that's how I feel about that whole thing. I'm sure she'll land on her feet. She'll do something else. But that's something we need to really look at with a lot of these networks. That's what they do. That's
Well,
just what they
your
do.
comment is very right, because what you're saying is very much what some of the comments on Instagram was as well. They said
Okay.
almost your same words to
Where are we
Wow.
going?
almost your same words. They were saying that that has been the history of major broadcasts
Mhm.
and media, legacy media, as we might want to call it, in the past. And so now it's inherent upon Black people. You know, the same thing happened to Don Lemon, the same thing happened
Yes.
to our brother Martin, who's now has his own platform and is about to join a big new platform. So maybe it's
Same
time.
conversations, if I could just interject, Clarence, and say same conversations are happening around where we shop, how we shop, who we give our money to. And so you're starting to see some real intentionality and I think movement building around those things that are really promising. So okay, Target, you want to play in
Mhm.
our faces? You told us that DEI was a focus of yours. Okay, now I got a list of where I can get all this crap. You know what I mean? And it's not you. And
Mhm.
so and there are a lot of, I think you talk about this secular, you know, like focusing on it every however many generations or whatever, but I do think there are a lot of conversations that are returning to focusing on and supporting the black folks outside of some of these larger entities.
Mhm.
So it'll be interesting to see if that momentum and those practices can be sustained.
It will. It will. It's that time again. It's that cycle again, and that's hopefully this time it won't end. We got to keep it going. Because everything, all of the truth is being revealed. That's the way I look at it. We're in the age of Aquarius, the time of awareness, and is just is what it is. So everything happens for a reason and when it's supposed to. That's the African way of looking at stuff. You know what I mean? That's just it. Yep.
Are there any other questions, Sarah Beth?
There are no more questions, but there is a whole lot of love in the chat, and we'll make sure that you see it. I just want to say thank you so much to you, Toni and LaCoya, for this
Sure.
incredible conversation on Black feminism and Afrowomanism. And thank you to Clarence for this labor of love and the opportunity to be together again. This is our last messy conversation of the quarter, and we hope to see you on April 14th when we start back up.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for having me.
So there's no hot topic next Monday for Messy Conversation?
There may well be.
If
Okay, so stay tuned, same bat channel. We'll reach out to everyone who was on today and everyone who's come in the past.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is one of the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Did we lose a Corey? Oh, okay.